Hello and welcome to Fine is a Four-Letter Word. My guest today is Andi Overton, and I am super excited to have you here, Andi. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, let's get right into it with my first question of what were the values and beliefs that were instilled in you as you were growing up that carried through to your young adulthood?
Oh, yeah. So, that's really funny. My mother would tell you such a different story, but it's really leaving your place a little bit better than you found it. In other words, giving way more back than you have ever taken. It's almost that Boy Scout, Girl Scout creed. It's the idea of not just picking up your trash, but helping someone out, opening a door, being kind to people. Just do a little bit extra so that the world's a better place. And I have carried that throughout my entire life. And in fact, I will tell you, Lori, that in my Rotarian club, right, I'm a Rotarian, they ask you to introduce yourself. And one of the things I have always said is, I am the kind of person that brings back their shopping cart, that holds the door open, and I will never beep at you if you are at a red light and it turns green. I'll just wait. I'm fine. You do you. Something's happening. And I just think that you got to leave the world a little bit better place than you found it.
Is that because you're not originally from the East Coast that you'll just sit and wait? Because the East Coasters were like, go, light's green, go.
Yeah. And you know what? That's entirely possible. That could be a complete cultural reference to the West Coast. I'm from Nevada. But, we'll just chill. That's fine. It's good. I feel like you'll go when you need to go. And if I got to go around you, I go around you. Maybe, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It's an East Coast thing. I get beeped at all the time. And I'm okay with that, too.
Yeah, we're sometimes a little impatient out here. But,
yeah, I hear you.
But I love that you have that spirit of generosity and giving. And I do return my shopping cart as well. So we're not all heathens.
That's perfect. Yeah, that's right. I mean, don't leave it in the middle of the parking lot. That's all I'm saying. Give it back to somebody who can use it. That's all.
Right. So how did that serve you, or as you grew up? I know before our when we talked before this call, you were telling me the story about how you actually came to leave Nevada and end up on the East Coast. Share some of that.
Yeah, sure. And listen, as a true Nevadan, I have to tell you that our state's name is Nevada. And it's a hard thing to learn, and it's okay if you say it any other way, but I am, like, by Nevada decree, I have to correct you.
I appreciate that. It's the same with Oregon.
No, thank you. Yeah,
Oregon,
without a doubt.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, it's Oregon. It's not gone, right? It's still there. So I ended up on the East Coast because I was going through a whole bunch of college fairs, right? And I land at a college fair in Reno, Nevada on like the last day. And I walk up to this all-women's college called Mount Holyoke College. And I said, do you have psychology and can I play softball? She said yes to both. And I'm like, I'm in. And so totally want to go to this college. And my mom's like, yeah, great. And then figured out that it was 2,500 miles across the U.S. in Massachusetts. And she fought me. She's like, how about like California? How about Oregon? And I was like, no, man, I'm good. I'm going to go all the way across the way here. And so my mother, who is a hardworking single mom, didn't have enough money to send me there more than once. So I got a plane ticket. It was one way. And it was the cheapest ticket, which, as you know, in 1993, maybe, that's the red eye. So I boarded a plane. This is long before 9/11. This is long before we had all these regulations at an airport. So like my entire high school class, now granted that was like 26 people, like I come from a very small school, but like the captain of the football team, my best friends, we all went to the airport and they saw me off, right? From the airplane. Now, my mother did not know if I made it to Boston, got on a van with a guy that said Overton, and I got in this guy's van. I know it's sketchy already, right? I fell asleep.
Was he offering you candy?
And 90 minutes later, he wasn't, thank goodness. I probably would have taken it. I was starving, right? Because I was nervous to leave. I didn't eat anything all night. I fly to Boston. It's like 6 o'clock in the morning. I've never been to the city, the state. This guy's holding my name up. I'm like, you must be my dude. I hop in this guy's van. It is like the windowless van that my mother has warned me about for 18 years of my life. And I'm like, yeah, I'm good. Let's go to college. Awesome. Good job, Mom. Totally great parenting skills. And so I hop in this van and I fall asleep because I'm exhausted. And it's like I literally landed, found this dude, fell asleep in the van, and woke up at college. 90 minutes later, I woke up in the back seat and he's like, "You're here, get out." Now, understand this is before cell phones. I hadn't called my mom. I didn't call her when I got off the plane. She had no idea if I was even alive, but I was doing my thing. And finally, after I get moved into my dorm, I get the 2 suitcases from the airport. I finally find a phone and I call her, and she said, "I'm so happy to hear from you. Tell me all about it." We chat for about a half an hour. Now, what I didn't know until years later, when she hung up the phone, Lori, she was in tears. She was just in buckets because she was so relieved that I was, I don't know, alive. But she didn't want to tell that to me over the phone. She just wanted me to be excited. She was up all night thinking, that's it. I put my daughter on a plane. She's in some weird guy's van, all of which was true. She was not wrong. I just, obviously didn't die from the experience. I made it to college. And I haven't left the East Coast since, and that was September of 1993.
Yeah, parenting was so different back then. My mom put me on a plane to a semester abroad in Copenhagen, and in 1987, and it was the same thing. Like, did she get there? It was several days later, I think, when we finally talked, and she did the same thing when we hung up from that call. She was in tears, partly because I was in tears because the culture shock was so intense.
Oh, sure.
That I was like, I think I made a mistake.
Sure.
And so she was feeling my anxiety, and then so same thing. They started crying. But, they still put us on those planes and sent us.
Yep. It's as if they said, I've done all I can for you. I've given you all the tools that you need to be successful. Now, go off and be successful. And I bet you the minute I got on the plane and the plane doors closed, she was probably saying, what have I done? Like, oh my goodness, I should have went with her. There's got to be a way. Maybe I should start driving right now. I know those thoughts went through her head. And that's what moms do, right?
Right.
And worry, and that's just
and we turned out okay. So it was good decisions on their parts.
I feel like I'm on a good path. Yeah, I feel like they prepared me adequately. I mean, I did get into a sketchy guy's van. That was probably number one I shouldn't have done, but it was really for me, so it ended up being fine.
Yes, it was all fine. So
it was all fine.
How was that experience? Because Boston, very different from Nevada.
Thank you. That's very good. Thank you for that. Yeah. So Boston was, but I have to tell you, I was 90 miles west of Boston. So I wasn't even in the city. I went to Mount Holyoke, which is a small liberal arts college in the western part of the state. Complete culture shock.
Yeah.
Talk about culture shock. There's seasons there. Do you know that leaves fall on the East Coast and they change colors? I'm from the West Coast, where there's either a little bit of sagebrush and tumbleweeds or a lot of sagebrush and tumbleweeds. It's all desert all the time. We've got some pine trees, but nothing like, sheds their leaves in the middle of October. I'm used to it snowing in July. I'm used to it being hot in the middle of January. There's actual seasons here. And oddly enough, that blew my mind. I was like, this is what I've been reading about in books, for the past 13 years since I could read. And again, everybody's a little bit faster, right? I come from a small, buggy town that, there's one stoplight and, you just kind of go around people. I know everyone in my town, and all of a sudden I was listening to different accents and I was experiencing different cultures and diversity. And while neat, my eyes were open. And I was in a small liberal arts college. I didn't even have a skyscraper near me, but everything was new. It was like I was a newborn child coming out to the East Coast. Wild.
It's so interesting that you had that experience and my experience in Copenhagen similar, because it opened our eyes to different cultures, different types of people, different experiences, just diversity in great quantities. And I feel like so many people, especially in our country, and even to this day, could use an experience like that to help them realize that we are all... There's so much different differentiation and also the commonalities.
Oh, 100%. And you don't have to go to college to figure that out. There's opportunity to just engross yourself in something other than what you're used to everywhere. And it was so exciting for me because I just really thought, oh my goodness, here are things that I've never heard about before. There are people who didn't have driver's license because I took the subway where they went, and that blew my mind. I was like, how do you not have a license? I mean, how do you get around? And they're like, there's a subway, there's a bus. Like, we don't have cars. They're from New York, they're from Boston, and I'm from this little tiny town going, I don't get it. And they're looking at me the same way. They're like, why would you get a license? Oh, you live how far away? Your closest neighbor is what? So I think that was mutual with all the people I met too. So I was educating as much as they were educating me.
Yeah, cool. What was the most profound thing you learned when you were in that environment?
I learned that, and I know this is going to sound campy, but you can't grow unless you get out of your comfort zone. I would have never had the same mindset, the same ability to learn and understand and get out of my own way if I had not experienced a little bit of uncomfortableness because I said the wrong thing, because I didn't understand. And that's how you get out of that growth. Or that's how you grow, is to get out of that circle. So I think the most important thing that I learned is that this world is not about me. It is bigger than me. It is bigger than my experiences. And if I'm going to live in it, there's a better way to walk through life than just only thinking about how you are affecting everything around you. People affect you. You have a way to understand this world that is outside your own knowing and belonging. And I learned that in the first 6 months of being on the East Coast.
Love it. Would you take it as far as to say that we have a responsibility to do that?
I mean, I think so, sure. But then again, if you don't want to, no one's going to force you to. And if you want to live in that smaller world, okay, fine. But you're missing out on so much. Why would you close that door on the opportunity to learn about differing things? It's so exciting. I'd never eaten curry before I went to college. And I keep referring to college, but it was my way of getting out of my bubble to experience something that wasn't meat and potatoes. And I mean that literally and figuratively, you know? And so I just think that you're closing yourself off to so much. And if that's the way that you want to live in your life, so be it. But I find that very small. And I think that we are bigger and badder human beings that can really do great things for ourselves and the world if we step out of that circle.
Completely agree. Now let's move away from college. What happened? Yeah. We don't need to stay back in 1993 because
I mean it was a good year. But I hear you.
But because you have a really amazing story from your career. The career that you chose to go into, you ended up, I'm not quite sure how you ended up in Maryland, but you did, and you started a career in law enforcement.
I did, actually. I ended up at a graduate program at American University.
My alma mater.
DC. Oh, yeah, go Eagles. So DC is very expensive to live in. And when you're a poor grad student, you find a basement in someone's townhouse that they're renting in Maryland, and this is how I become a Maryland resident. So that's how I ended up here, and I decided, my graduate program was in criminal justice. It's called Justice, Law, and Society at American University. It's the theory of criminology as it applies to law and society as a whole. So super interesting, and my goal from the minute I graduated high school was to go to the FBI. I wanted to be a behavioral analyst. And I applied when I was graduating from my graduate program. I applied to the FBI, to the ATF. I wanted to be federal law enforcement. And all of them laughed at me because the two questions they asked me was, do you speak Farsi at the time, or are you an accounting major? And I said no to both. And they were like, go find some law enforcement experience and come back to us in a few years. We have no use for the great talents that you have. A polite way of saying we're not looking for the skills that you have. We need other skills. And I was like, okay, I can do that. So I became a police officer with the Montgomery County Police Department. And I thought, this will be my way also to serve my community in a way that I thought admirable. And it was my stepping stone to a federal law enforcement career. But the more I got into it, what I realized was if you really want to affect change in your community and you're interested in law enforcement, being a local cop is a great way to do that. Because while working on super big federal cases would be really fun, you get an opportunity as a local cop to learn about the shopkeeper down the street and the school up the road, and I really liked that. And I determined about a year into my career in law enforcement that I was good. I wanted to stay kind of where I was. And I had no interest in reapplying to the federal agencies for then. And that I really liked the people that I met and the change that I was making. So what I did was, as I threw myself into this career, and I mean throw myself into this career. I signed up for the hardest districts, the ones that needed the most help, that needed enforcement in a way that kept the good people safe and the bad people in jail. And I worked really hard, and I worked really long hours. Now, I learned a lot, right? Talk about learning about the world as it pertains to you, and that you are not the center of the universe. There were so many differing experiences and people in different places in their lives. And at 25 years old, I would have to walk in someplace and counsel two 50-year-old people arguing in their marriage. I had never been married. I had no kids, and I had to figure out a way so that they wouldn't kill each other that night. And as a 25-year-old kid, that's a big responsibility. Talk about learning about things outside of your own circle. Well, that happened fast. But, so as we talked about, I worked really hard, and I went to court during the day because you have to obviously try the cases that you arrest the bad people for. And I realized quite early in my career I was a complete burnout. And it took me a long time to say that because it feels like failure, and it wasn't. But I realized very quickly that, to me, everybody was a dirtbag. Everybody had something up their sleeve. Everybody wanted to either try and kill me, somebody else, or were doing horrific things. And sometimes you just blow a stop sign because you're not paying attention. Sometimes you hit the gas pedal a little too much, and sometimes you fender bender and bump into somebody else. It doesn't mean that you're running drugs to El Salvador. And so very quickly I realized that I was burning out fast. I was really being not the kind of cop that I should be. And I was angry at a lot of different things from the stuff that I saw and had to deal with. And so I decided that I would try and make it better by switching stations. I went to a station in a district that was far less involved in criminal activity. It was just a slower place. It was, we can talk about the socioeconomics of that at a later date.
I was going to say Montgomery County, for people who are listening, and because people listen from all over the world, is very...
great.
There's a big disparity between in socioeconomic. Some places are very, very wealthy, and some are not.
Right. And I went to a very wealthy area, and it was too slow for me. There wasn't enough crime, plain and simple. And I knew right there that I was looking for people to do bad things because I was bored. That seemed very selfish to me. And so I realized very quickly I was burning out fast. And I was making stupid traffic stops, and I was saying stupid things when people would get under my skin. And people's freedoms and lives were in my hands. And I look back, Lori, and I really think I'm so happy that I didn't make a really poor decision. Excuses or not, reason or not, I'm really glad I didn't make a poor decision. And one day, a friend of mine who worked in higher education said, you know what, you should come and work at this college. And I was like, yeah, no thank you, okay? I cannot deal with all these kids I'm 25 years old, all these kids running around acting like school is the only thing for them, right?
And there's not enough drama there
and
for
entitled. Yeah, what am I going to do? Bus parties because they have a red Solo cup? No, thanks. And my friend said, no, it's an admissions. It's an enrollment. You talk to families about their kids going back to school. And I said, no, thank you. And she's like, you seem really unhappy with what you're doing. And I'm like, no, I'm good. I don't know what you're talking about. She's like, no, you seem really. Yeah, I'm fine. That's it. Exactly. I'm totally fine. All right. Can you not see that I'm fine? And she kept telling me, you're so not fine. And you let me know when you come to that conclusion that I just did. She must have asked me 3 times. And I think on the 3rd or 4th time, she said, this position is not going to be open forever. We're hiring people. This is your last shot. And I was so exhausted. I'd been to court all week. I had had some really tough calls that I kept thinking about. And if you keep going back to the victims that you couldn't help, and they keep replaying those things in your mind, that's post-traumatic stress disorder, right? That is trauma. And I wasn't getting over it. And I wasn't going to therapy, and I wasn't talking about it. So I finally said, you know what? You're right. I don't want to hurt somebody or myself or anyone else. And I literally left the profession. And I started working in a higher education college, basically. And I just feel so darn lucky that my friend, who we're so very close, was like, you're not okay. I can't force you to leave your career. But you are not okay. And I'm only going to ask this a 3rd time. She didn't have to ask a second time. And she said, this is an opportunity for you. And what she really did tell me was, no one's going to make you work on Christmas, and no one's going to usually fight you or try and kill you on a daily basis. Just consider it. And thank goodness I did. And I've been in that profession for the past 10, 15 years.
I think the lesson here, there's so much to cover in this topic, but what places I want to go.
Let's unpack all of it,
in this moment, what I want to bring out is the idea that sometimes listening to outsiders who have that outside perspective to see what you can't see because you're so in the weeds, and taking counsel from those people and saying, hey, wait, maybe they have a valid point.
Right. And thank goodness for a friend who kind of called me on my bullshit, right? And said, she didn't ask once, and we're good friends. She kept at me. And she finally gave me an ultimatum, right? Because if she just would have kept asking me, I think I would have just kept blowing her off. But she's like, this is it. I'm not doing this again. There won't be another position. Shit or get off the pot. So thank goodness I had a support group of friends that could see through my crap and throw me a lifeline. Now, ultimately, it was my decision to make the move.
And it always comes down to personal responsibility for making our own decisions.
That's exactly right. And I took the lifeline and pulled myself out. And looking back, I realized I was in a really dark place, man. I'm so happy for the experience that I had. I did a lot of great things. I helped a lot of people, but it was really brutal for me. And this isn't a reflection on, I'm not talking about law enforcement or any other cop out there. This is just my personal experience with the manner in which I reacted to the things that I saw and did. And so thank goodness for my support group. And I had other friends who were like, yeah, man, you were really miserable. And I'm like, well, my friend Lynette is the only one who actually said anything, so where were you? And they're like, listen, man, you're a pretty strong personality. It's hard to tell you anything. And I'm like, yeah, it's fair. Totally fair. It is. It's really hard for someone to sit me down and go, we need to talk about what you're doing. That doesn't happen often.
Right. But it's good. Right. Sometimes friends can do that. And sometimes friends they don't have the capacity to handle things, and that's when professionals need to get involved, go to counseling, therapy, whatever it is. Like, again, there's no shame in getting help. And so I'm curious, actually, though, did you do that as well? Because you mentioned having post-traumatic stress.
Mm-hmm. I have formally and I have informally. It's really nice to go to someone who is a professional and you can kind of spill all the beans. And the one thing I've been to a therapist more than once, but the one thing that I really, really liked about what I did was somebody sat me down and said, I'm really glad you got this out, and I'm really glad you talked about it. What you do with the information is up to you from here on out, but you just sound like you just brought all this stuff off your shoulders. I like, my shoulders dropped. I started smiling more when I started talking about it. And then I have really great friends who help me through some times that I kind of go back to that dark spot. I'm not in therapy now. I'm not seeing a therapist now, and that's okay because I know that I can if I need to. But I have a lot of really great tools that I can start using if my life gets a little too, overwhelming, stressful.
Right, right, because everybody has stress. It's not a competition. Like, somebody doesn't have to say, oh, I have the stress that you had when you were in law enforcement, and so mine's not as bad as that, so I'm okay. Like, it's not, there are.
Yeah, it's not a race. It's not pie. It's not like I have more stress than you, so I get more therapy. No, I mean, you could have this much compared to me, or I could have this much compared to you. It's how we react to that and what we have to do to continually live a positive, happy, outgoing life. Whatever that means to you, yeah.
Exactly, agreed. Because being stuck at fine, as we have talked about many times on this show, is not the way to go through life. So... yeah.
No, you got to break out of that
You
circle.
mentioned having tools that you use. Do you have like a morning routine? Are there things that you do on a regular basis to keep yourself in a good headspace?
Yeah, so there's 3 things that I have to do, and if one starts slipping, then I go, oh, I get it. I have to actually eat decently. I'm not saying you got to be on a diet or some weird healthy regimen of eating, but I got to stop eating like quickly and crap, right? Two, I have to expend energy, whether that's working out in the gym, whether that's playing a quick softball game, whether it's helping my friends' kids play soccer. I have to get out that energy that I have. And the third thing is sleep for me. Not just getting enough hours, but getting that rest that I wake up and go, okay, because it lets me dump my brain. So the way that my sponge fills up very quickly, and if I wake up in the morning and I still don't have the capacity to learn, to analyze, to figure out problems, then I know that one of those three things are out of whack. And I start thinking back to my, what I've been doing for the past week. I'm like, well, I've been eating like complete shit. I can't eat pizza every night. It doesn't fuel me. And I've been sleeping very restlessly. I need to dump this brain. So those are my checking points. And so what I just try and do is start to once I understand it, I'm like, all right, I can deal with this. And then I can start making some plans for the next couple days if I have to, and start tweaking those. And I feel so much better because then I feel righted again. My world is back where it should be.
That is such great advice for everybody. Those three are key components. And so many people don't necessarily have the, is it self-awareness? They're just not paying attention to how important those things are, but they are important for every individual. Every human needs to eat healthfully, move on a regular basis, and get enough sleep. It's just biologically what we need to do. And people try to say, well, I don't need that much sleep, or I'm fine sitting at a desk for 23 hours a day. Like, you're not.
Yeah, and I think you're not, actually. We are human and we are made to move as much as possible. And I do believe that, but I also think it's a bit of a continuum. Like, it doesn't mean that you can't go out with your friends and have a slice of pizza. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you got to balance that out in a way that you can absorb some of that crappy food, even if it makes you happy for a little bit. Or if you're having a really busy days where you can't get out and do the things that you would normally do, so sit on the floor and stretch out a little bit. I don't know, just stand up and walk around. Go for a walk around the block, up and down the apartment stairs, whatever it may be. And also, even though these are three things that are important to me, maybe for someone else, it's, you got to drink 12 ounces of water. You've got to maybe not drink so many cups of coffee. I don't know what that is, but find your three pieces, at least, that center you, and be able to look back and see where they're out of whack, and then fix it. Only you can fix that. Somebody can't tell me, they can't force me to eat better. I have to do that.
Yeah.
And I know that I feel better
exactly.
when I do
it. We're coming back again to this whole theory of personal responsibility for making sure that what you're doing is fueling yourself. And I don't mean fueling just in the nutritional way. It's mental, spiritual fueling all the way around. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Find your containers, find what fuel you need, and pay attention to it. And I think it goes back to the very beginning when I said that sometimes fueling those containers means that you got to step outside your circle to grow. It means you got to get a little uncomfortable. Do I want to eat a salad every night? No, I want to eat pizza and drink a beer. But I also know that I should probably eat a salad every night. And while uncomfortable, it makes me feel better in the end. I also know that I don't want to go to the gym for 45 minutes and do crunches because I know it's going to hurt. But I do it because I have to get outside of that comfort zone and grow. And the only way to grow is to sometimes you got to be a little uncomfortable.
Yes. And future Andi thanks you when you do go to the gym or eat healthfully. And I'm totally on board with you. The eating healthfully thing does not mean you don't get to have a brownie or a cupcake or some pizza and whatever it is. That's all part of enjoying life. And
sure,
right,
sure,
in moderation. I'm completely in agreement. Not everybody is as crazy as I am. So I haven't actually said this on my podcast, but I have said it some other places. But I've been tracking my macros on the MyFitnessPal app. I'm on day 617 today as we record this. 617.
Holy cow!
Consistent. So that takes you all the way back to February of 2020. I'm just, not everybody is as crazy about it as I am, but it helps me to see how to stay on track. And I get, some people might consider that obsessive. That's fine. Again, it works for me.
Right. So do it in your own way, whatever that means for you. I know that when I don't eat a bunch of grease, I feel better. So how about I feel better this weekend and don't eat a bunch of grease? I don't have to track all my macros. I already know those. But do what is good for you. Your body is a temple and you are a beautiful, wonderful person. Treat yourself accordingly. And I just think that should be a theory. And I have to tell you, my one theme in life is eat the cake and turn left. Eat the cake means, just because you're eating healthily and if you can and you go to a birthday party, take the slice of cake and eat it, right? Eat the cake and turn left. Turn left means you don't always have to get from one place to another in a straight line. Hang a left turn and go see what's outside of your normal path. And those are the two things I say all the time. Eat the cake and turn left. Go see what's out there.
Fantastic. All right. You mentioned movement. So before we go, I need to know, what is the song that you crank up when you need to increase your enthusiasm, charge up your energy, get moving? What's your song?
So it's going to be really weird. It's not the hype song you think it is, but it's Closer to Fine from the Indigo Girls. And it's because it was, here I go back to college again, but I can remember first listening to this awesome folk group. It brings a smile to my face. I think of nothing but positivity. And the first paragraph, the first set of lyrics is like, I'm going to be closer to fine. Everything's going to be all right. And you're going to help me get there. And I love that song. It pumps me up. Is it like a barn burner? No, but it makes me feel like I can do the things that I need to accomplish.
That is perfect. And lastly, if somebody wanted to continue a conversation with you, where can they find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Facebook. I'm Andi Overton. You can find me on all those places. Oddly enough, I ran for mayor of my small town. I actually have a website, but it's still old, but you can find me there at andioverton.com. I'll have to now update it because this is going to go out to all your followers. You can find me on social media, and you can find me in Baltimore teaching people about how to get into graduate school at the college that I work at. So you can find me all over the city.
Beautiful. We'll put a link to those social medias and your website in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining me today, Andi. On fine is a 4-letter word.
Thank you, Lori. Appreciate it.
Very cool.